Hi, welcome to my channel where you too can be beautiful, and I believe that if you have a beautiful mind, you will have a beautiful life because your mind is connected to the way that you interact with your exterior and the outer world. So, today we are going to talk about victim mentality, and by the way, I have my dog on my lap, so if I'm like, if it looks weird, my little boo, my little boo, my little boo. I'm gonna get started with the fact that a lot of us have victim mentality, and I didn't notice that I carried victim mentality until I had a dream. I pretty much subconsciously kept blaming my upbringing for my current circumstances. Do you know how people say rose-colored glasses? Well, I'm gonna call it victim-colored glasses because that's how I was viewing the world. How am I ever going to progress, get along, and continue living in my peace, in my highest frequency? How am I going to live out of love if I am living life through the belief that I have been a victim? Oh, poor me, my mom, etc., fill in the blank. Oh, poor me, my dad, etc., fill in the blank. Oh, poor me, I have a broken home. I didn't realize what that was until I had that dream and I looked it up in the dictionary, and then the dictionary is like, oh, you're suffering from victim mentality. What the hell is that? Here we are making this video because adopting a brand new belief, knowing and catching myself when I was self-pitying myself or saying, oh, well, life is so hard. Oh, well, I can't let that go. I have this pain here because of yada, yada, yada. And, that was going to get me nowhere, and it's going to get nobody anywhere. Like I said earlier, we do take in information from this lens of being a victim that causes people to have a pessimistic view on the world. Having a victim mentality and always blaming yourself allows you to act only within those parameters that you are in fact a victim, and that of course this would happen to you because it's always happened to you. A more spiritual side about this, if you think about something, you're going to attract that. Whatever you think is what you're going to attract. If you're constantly repeating to yourself, my life sucks and I don't deserve to be happy, when we have too much of a good thing, we're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, because why is life being so good to you, right? It is shown that people with victim mentality actually have low self-esteem. They went around in the school asking people and asking students how their classes were, and many students said, oh, well, I don't understand what's going on. My grades suck. My class sucks. Pretty much acting from this point of view as if they can't do anything, as if they can't get any sleep, as if they might not be going out a little bit too much, as if they might not be putting their priorities in the wrong place, as if they can't change up their way of studying. They automatically assume that there's nothing else that they could do because they're playing from a victim mentality. When you are in a victim mentality, you don't see other options. You don't see the bigger picture. I was speaking to my coworker the other day, and she said, well, I don't have time for meditation. I wish I could meditate more. And I'm not saying that stems from victim mentality, but that's a really good example of, well, you have time to go out though, right? And you have time to go to the gym. You have time to watch TV and catch up on your favorite series. So you have time to meditate. So being in victim mentality and seeing the world from this lens specifically sets you up to be a victim of your entire life without even realizing that you're doing it, because right now it's just how you grew up and what was taught to you. I immediately thought about a metaphor, and it's the story about the elephant, and if you haven't heard it, I'm here to tell you about it. There is an elephant that they tied up with a rope down to the floor, and the rope ties the elephant down as a baby, and the baby struggled days, weeks, and it figured out that it was never going to get away because it was tied down with this rope. But as the elephant grew its big old size, it never tried to get away because it thought that it could not escape the rope because it was conditioned to not escape, and it never tried ever again to do anything because that rope was stopping it. But it was a lie because it's humongous, and that rope can no longer constrain that huge elephant. It should be able to get away with no problem. And that's literally what I think of as in the conditioning of our minds when we are growing up. We think that we are stuck living the life that we are given, and it's not to take away from the problems that you might have had, and it's not to take away the very detrimental cause that it had on your brain. and emotional well-being. It's not to say that it didn't matter. It does matter. Your feelings are completely valid, but there's a difference between just staying stuck in that trauma and living from that trauma, making choices from that trauma for the rest of your life, and taking responsibility and saying, hey, this is how I feel. This is what they did. And they were going to do that to anybody. It could have been anybody in your shoes, but it happened to be you. It's not your fault that that happened. It's their fault, and it's their own trauma, issues, and healing that they have yet to do. And maybe they don't want to do it. At some point, you just have to be like, well, that's okay. I am not going to live from that, and I'm not going to make the same mistakes that everybody else around me is making. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to try to heal my wounds and change whatever it is that needs to be changed for you to live your literal best life. A study shows that people with victim mentality have anger issues. They're unable to manage their own emotions. They are frustrated very easily, and they tend to resolve issues with violence. Now, if you know anything about energy, and anger and frustration stem from a really low vibrational frequency, and that all has to do with your root chakra. Frustration, anger, it comes from not feeling safe in your environment, from thinking that the world is out to get you, from constantly being with your guard up because you're ultimately trying to protect yourself because you didn't have a safe place to grow up in. You didn't have a safe place to be in. Ways that you can move out of victim mentality is practice saying no to people. Many times the people that caused us the trauma or caused us to feel this way and think this way are our loved ones and our family. And when you first start to place these boundaries, these people are not going to like it because it is the first time that they're ever going to hear it. It's the first time that you're ever going to do it. So it could be a very difficult conversation to have, and it can be a very triggering circumstance, and it's quite easy to fall back into the same pattern of lowering down to their level. But that's why practice comes in, and say, well, I should have said this, this, and this, and reflect on it and change your behavior in the future. Eventually you will succeed. If there's a will, there's a way. And that's also part of victim mentality, not saying, well, look, I can't change them because look at the way they reacted. Look at what they're telling me. Look at how they insulted me. Do you want them to feel triggered in this conversation? Because you can look at their behavior and say, and not accuse them, don't tell them this, but you already know this is the trauma. This is what's wrong with you. And breathe in and breathe out and continue placing your boundaries. And if you happen to lose these people, then they don't belong in your life anyways. The other thing that you could do to get out of victim mentality is forgive others. I know that it could be so hard and quite undescribable to even grasp the idea of how to start forgiving someone. I know that I struggled with this for years. Me and my mother, I think I wrote her about 5 letters that I wanted to send out to her saying that I forgave her, and I just never knew how to do it. Eventually I did a lot of inner work, did a lot of meditation, and I came to have the courage to talk to her again and contact her and be in a connection again, because I am aware that having a connection with a person who gave birth to you is quite important to a human's association with the feminine energy. And I didn't know how to forgive her until one day I understood what forgiving her was. It wasn't forgiving her for what she'd done. For me, it was forgiving her and seeing her through the lens of not being her daughter, viewing her as a human being, observing her as an adult has helped me realize that she didn't know any better. She came from a very, very hard reality in Cuba. She literally did her best. She worked very hard for me, and there's things that I could really appreciate about her work ethic. Instead of her viewing me and doing the same things that she ever does, I'm placing my boundaries. I'm telling her how I feel. And, ultimately, if she's not okay with that, I don't think she's ever going to walk out of my life. But she's more than welcome to if I trigger her way too much, or if she's not comfortable with something, like, hey, it's okay. I'm not going to put myself down and allow myself to feel some type of way to accommodate your feelings, because my feelings are valid just as hers are. It took me a long time to forgive what I had gone through, but ultimately I do forgive her and I do care for her. A third thing to do to get out of victim mentality is to forgive ourselves. Forgive ourselves for resisting change for however long. It doesn't matter how old you are. The older you get, the harder it is to come to accept that you've been been living a certain way for so long, it can be so difficult to accept that as an adult, you might be living and making choices from these viewpoints that no longer serve you. And that could be very, very hard to come to realization to and to accept. And that self-judgment should be released because it's okay. And even things that you've done in the past, it's okay to forgive yourself. It's okay to forgive yourself for surviving the only way that you knew how to survive. It's okay to forgive yourself for looking back at a situation that you should have stood up for yourself and you didn't. It's okay to forgive yourself for anything that you've done in the past because you are human. You did the best that you could, and that's all that matters. Fourth thing you could do is managing your feelings, learning how to manage your triggers, learning how to manage your frustration, learning how to manage your anger. There's a lot of tools and sources on the internet to help you with these things. For me, meditating does wonders. Journaling when I'm upset does wonders. Stretching, believe it or not, does wonders. Even working out or just being in nature. I remember I was going through a really hard breakup and it felt like I had lost a piece of my freaking heart. I was trying not to turn to substances anymore or drink anymore. So I found myself going to a botanical garden. I walked around, I listened to music, and I might have cried. It was honestly really refreshing. It was really nice for me to experience that. And at the end of it all, I felt so grateful to be on earth and to be surrounded by so much beauty and art in the world. And even though my heart felt like I had a huge freaking hole and like I was missing a piece of my entire existence, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. We're all gonna be okay. You can also practice gratitude in your life. It really helps you see the positive things that we do have in our lives despite our crappy circumstances. If you were to almost die and go through a near-death experience, you wouldn't want to leave. I hope. You don't have to be a product of your environment. You can choose to change it. You can choose to interact with it in the way that you want to. Be smart about it. Use your words. Change it. Change the energies. If something's not working, like play with it a little bit. Another thing that you could do is celebrate your wins. All right, guys, well, I'm going to leave you with that. Before you go, I want to take a step together here and ask you what 3 things that you're grateful for today. And write it down in the comments. If you don't feel comfortable being vulnerable or saying it or you don't want to, it's completely fine. 3 things that I'm grateful for is my ability to create art. I'm grateful for music, and I'm extremely grateful for books. 1,000%. Yeah. Thank you for watching my video today. I hope that you learned something. Take only what you need, never more, never less. Don't be greedy, bitch. Bye.